Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 7-Minute Workshop. On these workshops, we chat with experts and we break down complicated and timely topics that affect your business. And we do it in just 7 minutes. I've had staring contests that last longer than that. Okay, I'm not going to do that today. Our theme this month has been focused on helping you prepare for the 2021 holiday season. And to wrap things up this week, we'll discuss things to consider after the holidays and ways to continue your positive customer experience, especially when it comes to your returns processes. To dive into this, we'll be joined once more by NetSuite expert Abby Jenkins, our product marketing manager. Unfortunately, Allison O'Clair could not join us today, but we've loved having her on this month. And a quick reminder before we get started, if you have any questions throughout today's discussion, you can ask them in the comments and we'll get to them at the end of the conversation. And don't forget, tell us where you're tuning in from. We know you've signed on from all parts of the world, and we'd love to give you a shout out right back. Also, feel free to tell us ways in which your company has or will provide a positive post-holiday experience for your customers. What does your returns process look like? What options do you offer? Are you trying anything new or continuing something that maybe it worked last year? We want to hear your insight and thoughts. Okay, everyone, please join me in welcoming Abby Jenkins. Hey, Abby, thanks for joining us. We might be having some technical difficulties. Abby, are you with us? All right. Well, while we're kind of waiting for some of those to get fixed, I'll perform some card tricks or maybe tell some jokes. Just a reminder that we have had a few of these topics in the last few weeks, and this is the last of our series on holiday readiness. So we're gonna conclude, and at the end of this, I'm gonna actually talk about what we're doing next. Okay, I think Abby, you're live now. We can go ahead. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Fritz. How's it going?
All right. Thank you. My filler game is not so great. So let's jump right in. So we're talking about the things to consider after the holidays. What do businesses typically experience during post-holiday weeks?
Yeah, so the holidays are such a busy time, and that busyness is over, but now businesses really need to focus on returns. So on average, businesses can expect about 11% of sales will be returned, and that varies a lot depending on where the order was generated. So up to 40% of online purchases end in a return. And the longer that these items sit in the warehouse, the more carrying costs they incur and the harder they become to get rid of. So depending on how businesses are set up to handle returns or not, ultimately has a big impact on your profitability. For many businesses, processing returns and getting them ready to resell is just too much of a logistical hassle, and they aren't set up to do it, so they don't. And as a result, we see 5 billion pounds of brand new returns that end up in the landfill each year. And this has a detrimental effect on your business's profitability and on the environment.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot to process. That 5 billion pounds, but also the 40% of online purchases end in return.
Yeah.
So that causes a lot of issues. What issues and pain points do businesses usually run into here?
Well, as I touched on a second ago, just that returns process in general and being able to set up a process to get returns back into inventory so that you give yourself the best chance of reselling that item and recouping your cost of goods. Aside from that, many businesses are selling through multiple channels, and that adds complexity to the return situation. I mean, customers are shopping through multiple channels, and they expect that experience to extend to the returns and exchange process as well. And once the inventory has been returned, the challenge is, how do you then process that inventory and make it sellable again? So assuming businesses are accepting returns across all channels, this can create a challenge as customers buy online and return in store, and vice versa. But stores are now really burdened with not only their inventory, but with returns inventory as well. And so they're really left with two options. They can either return that inventory to the warehouse, which ensures the inventory is available to fulfill future online orders, but it's going to incur that additional shipping cost, which is added to your cost of goods. So even if you sell that item for full retail value, you're making less of a profit on it. And the alternate is keeping that inventory where it is returned, so in the store. And the risk there is that if you don't have inventory visibility across all channels and the ability to ship from store, you're limiting your chances of that item being resold. And this is especially true for seasonal goods like holiday branded goods or any kind of apparel and footwear that has a seasonality to it. The longer that it sits, the more carrying costs it incurs, and the less likely you are to get that item out the door.
Sure. Wow. Okay. It's a lot to process. And I would imagine that this holiday season, being a bit unpredictable, will have its own challenges. What might those be?
Absolutely. Well, last week we talked a lot about the increase that we've seen in commerce sales and how we don't see that trend reversing even as we emerge from the pandemic. And because of the nature of online shopping, you're not able to try things on or to touch and feel them before you purchase them. We're seeing some interesting trends emerge around how customers are shopping online. So 40% of shoppers are buying multiple items with the intention of returning some of them to the retailer. So they're buying two sizes, they're trying them on at home with the intention of only keeping one. And so this really underscores the importance of being able to process returns and getting them back into inventory quickly so that you can then resell them. Aside from that, buying online and returning in store, which we've been seeing gaining adoption over the last few years, but has really kind of transformed and taken on a more innovative idea when we weren't able to get into the stores last year. Businesses are doing processing returns online and then dropping them off in store. And what came out of necessity last year really has been a benefit to customers because it is convenient. And so I think that we'll continue to see those type of things adopt into a mainstream shopping experience and expectation from customers.
Sure. And I mean, the risk, of course, is that it might even increase returns more. More options means, more of a tendency to do that. How can businesses manage all of this? What are some of the tools that can help them navigate these challenges?
Yeah, so first you need to make sure that you're able to process returns and that you have a way of getting those items back into inventory quickly. Second is going to be having inventory of visibility across all channels. So if an item is returned to the store, it needs to be able to go back into inventory immediately, so that it's visible not only at the store level, but online as well. So this enables a buy anywhere, fulfill anywhere, return anywhere shopping experience, and really gives you the best chance of getting rid of that inventory at the highest price possible. The next one is to minimize the number of touches. So every time an item is moved, it increases its cost of goods. So if an item is returned to the store, whether it was purchased there or online, the ability to put it back into inventory without shipping it back to the warehouse will really save you from incurring those additional shipping charges, which then increase your cost of goods. So enabling drop shipping from the store for online orders to get those items items back out the door is really going to be essential to maximizing your profitability. And finally, if you haven't set up some standards and practices for how to accept returns, that is going to be very key so that employees aren't left trying to navigate how to do that without any framework.
And what processes do they need to start putting in place now? We're here in end of September, just a couple months away, to start preparing for post-holidays.
Yeah, I think aside from the software side of things, like we were just talking about at the store level, businesses really need to manage the chaos. They maybe need to have a dedicated area that is only for returns. They might want to consider allowing customers to do as much of that returns process before entering the store, processing it online and then dropping it off in the store to minimize kind of that waiting that we all remember from years ago of the standing in line for hours to return something. I think that customers aren't expecting that as the norm anymore, and then have a process defined for how to get returned items back into inventory quickly. And maybe this means having dedicated staff that is only processing returns on the back end. I don't mean like helping customers actually do the return, but after it's there, making sure that you check it, you figure out if it's resellable, and if it is resellable, getting it back into inventory quickly.
I'm going to open it up to some questions from the audience for those tuning in. If you have questions, keep commenting. Hey, tell us where you're tuning in from. We get people from all over the world. I'm in the Middle East. Abby, where are you today?
I'm in Denver.
Denver? We're miles apart, you
yes.
and I. So please tell us where you're tuning in from. Our first question is, how can businesses do this better next year? Even though we're kind of in the throes of it, it's probably this painful time of figuring it out. We probably have some lessons learned for next year. What can people do now to start thinking about next year?
Yeah, so if we think ahead to next year, I think really having a system in place that manages your returns, that eliminates some of those common points of failure like disparate systems, and ensures manages are returned accurately, that sellable items are put back into inventory without delay, and just ensures that that customer experience is extended to the returns process. One stat that I saw recently said 73% of shoppers say their overall returns experience affects the likelihood that they will purchase from a retailer again. So it is a huge impact on customers' overall experience of your brand, how that returns process is for them. Is it seamless? Is it a pain? Are they able to do it quickly without hassle? What does that look like?
That's interesting. When I saw that 40% figure for online returns, that's got to be scary for businesses. But as you're saying, if you do it right, you're going to get a loyal customer, and that probably makes up for it.
Absolutely. And if you can get that inventory back in to your system quickly so that you can resell it, I think that we will start to just see that as a part of the normal online shopping experience. And if we're able to reuse that returned inventory, I think that it won't be as much of a burden as it might initially seem.
We have some shout outs, Abby, from Shirish in India. Thanks for tuning in. Alessandra from Vancouver, the beautiful city in Canada, and from John. Is it John? Yes, John in North Carolina. Also a beautiful state. Thank you guys for tuning in. Keep shouting out, everybody. Abby, you mentioned having systems in place, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, if I'm thinking about my holiday processes for 2022, when do I need to start considering new systems, or selfishly implementing an ERP, or hopefully selfishly for our customers, like NetSuite?
Yeah, absolutely. We see for so many retailers that a huge chunk of their annual sales come here during the holidays. And so I think that it's realistic to say as soon as that holiday rush has ended and subdued, that's the time to start thinking about implementing something new so that you can get it up and running. You can get all the bugs out, you can test it, you can get employees really comfortable with it before you get it into that busy season of next year.
What trends did we see last year after the holidays when it came to returns?
Yeah, I think that, the big trend that we saw that was quite new was really processing returns online and then just dropping the item off in store or even curbside. So a few select retailers were doing that, but we really saw adoption of that increase. And I think that we also saw the benefit of that it made it a lot easier on store associates who weren't trying to do all of those returns when the customer could take on a lot of that burden of processing the return online and then just dropping the item off. And I think that we will continue to see that increase as we move forward.
And putting returns aside for a second, what are some of the other ways that businesses can create a positive customer experience after the holidays?
Sure. I mean, I think that just as we continue to have supply chain challenges, to be very more communication is better with customers. So just making sure that the expectations are set very clearly. If we can't fulfill something that we have promised, just making sure that that is done early and that there are no surprises. Again, making sure that that customer experience is seamless throughout the entire process, not only when things go right from the business, but also when you have a return, an exchange, you have a repair, any of those type of situations where the customer needs to come back, not for a repeat purchase. I think that's really where we're going to see that positive experience set those brands apart.
Well, that's all we have time for today, Abby. It was a pleasure having you and Allison on with us this month. And for anyone who wants to connect with you further, we've tagged your LinkedIn profile in the caption too. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Fritz. My pleasure.
As always, a big thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back with a new theme next week as we kick off October. As I teased at the top, we're going to say it right now: project management for services-oriented companies or companies, any type of company that might be managing a project. Our first topic that we'll dive into is resource management, what it means, why it's important, and how to overcome the challenges often associated with it. That is happening on Tuesday, October 5th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Can't wait. See you then.